The leaders of the G7 have just announced new sanctions on Russia for its invasion of Ukraine. President Biden is in Hiroshima, Japan for the meeting. Will end up cutting that planned trip short overseas, though, with a deal not yet reached on the debt limit negotiations and the default deadline happening as soon as June 1st. Mike Rogers is with us this morning. He was a member of Congress representing Michigan's 8th Congressional District, an officer in the U.S. Army, and an FBI special agent. Good morning to you. Let's start with the G7. The president will head back on Sunday. He's attending with several allies, but I guess the bigger question is, how does China view his early departure, given the threats and some of the discussions he'll be having with countries like France and Germany?
Well, again, the longer the debt negotiations go, it's really not great for America. China is trying to push the United States off the world stage, and one of the ways they're trying to do that is kind of continue to erode the U.S. Dollar as a currency reserve. We're at about 60% now. We used to be well over 70% just about a decade ago or so. And China wants to fill that void. So what they know is they'll take advantage of this fact that he has to leave the G7 meeting to come back. And I get the serious and the consequences of too much spending. That certainly benefits China, not the United States. But it's just not a great look for us as a country as we show the rest of the world what a vibrant democracy is all about, that he would have to leave the meeting to come back and negotiate. I hope they get this done. It really needs to be done. A default could be catastrophic for the United States. Not a game of chicken we probably should play with ourselves. But I think, well, again, hopefully they'll get that wrapped up this weekend and get to a vote next week.
All right. It sounds like at this point, at least, Mike, that some of the negotiations have paused, which is not a good sign. The GOP is wanting to include the border bill. How does that complicate things?
Well, every one of these things is, it's like a balloon animal. When you squeeze one end, the other end pops up. And so they've got to be very careful about the vote counts here, about what they add and subtract. I'm guessing that somebody in the one of the conservative side in the Republican House said, I want this bill as a part of it, or I'm voting no. That changes the calculus. At the end of the day, I think they need to get the best deal they can to get some spending under control, but at the same time need to understand how important this is for the international community viewing the United States, as well as our own national security. Going in default means some people aren't getting paid. Checks will have to be cut in half. Other things to try to eke out the finances as we move forward. None of that's good for the country. And so, listen, I think they're going to play a lot of these games, Marni, right up to the end about I want this and I want that. At the end of the day, people need to stop for a minute and put the country ahead of their party, their own interests, even their own districts, to make sure that this thing gets done.
And what does this negotiation do in terms of predicting what we could see in the year ahead, right, on big things and trying to negotiate if there's this stalemate over something so major?
You're going to, in a tight margin like the House is, they have just so few votes that the Republican majority can lose on any issue. They're going to use this to their advantage. They being the fraction of the Republican caucus that feels that this is the time to exact their pound of flesh, and that's part of the process. It's part of operating in a functioning democratic republic here. But I would argue that this is not always going to be this hard on these big issues. You'll have sometimes you'll have better consensus than others. Throwing the border bill in on the debt ceiling is, to me, you have to, let's at least try to relate it. One of the things they're trying to do in this whole thing is get spending down. Let's focus on things that can reform the way the government works. That would be great. Adding these other Christmas tree kind of items, boy, I'm not sure that's a great idea. This border issue, very, very important. But that means you're going to have to sit down and legislate, be in session, go through long nights and hard negotiations to get this stuff done. That's what I think Americans want their Congress to do.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.